Certainly welcome everyone who's joined us. Thank you for joining us for this spotlight with Dr. Abdullah. We're going to talk a little bit about your work. So tell us a little bit about your background, what you research and what you teach here at Virginia Union.
Okay, as you mentioned in my introduction, I study metals and how they impact living systems, and specifically at this time, I'm looking at how they affect plants, and more so how the plants absorb them from the environment, from the atmosphere. We are currently preparing to, well, we've started developing in our research project for this year and the coming years. We are interested in the impact of atmospheric metals in urban gardening plants. A lot of African Americans or communities of color there are large portions of those communities that live in food deserts. And so to address that issue, for people who are not aware of what a food desert is, that is any location or neighborhood that lives a great distance from a grocery store, and so they don't have access to fresh produce and even meat. A lot of people don't mention the meat part, but just whole foods. And so to address the issue, people have taken it upon themselves to develop urban gardens. They use available spaces in their neighborhoods, empty lots, and sometimes those lots are repurposed. They were once used for something else, and that other use could have left contaminants in the environment in that lot. And so a lot of times what they will do is they will actually, if they can afford it, they'll bring in soil and create raised bed gardens. But for communities that can't do that, they may know that they need to do a soil sample. If they can afford to do that, they will. If they cannot, then they'll try to do as much as they can to manipulate the soil so that if there are any contaminants from previous uses, those contaminants won't contaminate their food. But again, I mentioned that you have to have the resources to be able to do all of those activities to mitigate any danger. And a lot of communities don't have that. So they will go ahead and they'll use the soil as it is, and they will establish gardens so that they can have fresh produce. In addition to having fresh produce, it's an opportunity to bring people together in the community, because we know that a lot of funding has been removed from our communities, our underserved communities, which is part of what makes them underserved. And so the activities like music programs and athletics and things like that, where that youth used to be able to take advantage of, no longer exists. So urban gardening is another way to bring community constituents together and keep children out of trouble, and also bring adults together too. But our focus is, I think it's a fabulous idea to do urban gardening. I want to encourage people to do that. I just want them to do it in a safe manner. So we're interested in the urban part of it. So if you're living in an urban area, 9 times out of 10, there's a high exposure to pollutants, air pollutants, because there's usually a lot of traffic, or either some type of organization or business that is a big emitter of atmospheric pollutants. And it could even be a runoff. So those contaminants can get into the soil. And of course, they're growing their plants in the soil. There's another option. Dr. McShepard had someone come on and do workshops about using rocks, which are parent material for soil. And so that's another opportunity that people can use. But again, that takes resources to purchase the rocks and things like that. So, but people will plant they will plant in the soil, and if there are contaminants in the soil, the plants will take those contaminants up into their plant organs, which are their stems and their leaves and even roots. And some of the plants that we consume, like potatoes, are tubers or root plants. So we don't want to consume contaminated food. You know, that would be counterproductive to the whole idea. We want fresh food. We want fresh produce so that we can reap the benefits of it, the nutrients. So if you're getting nutrients and contaminants, that's not a good thing. So the pollutants from the emitters and from traffic, that is what we're concerned about. And so I thought about it. I'm like, I'm interested in urban gardening. I've started to meet a lot of people, agencies. One guy, Duran Chavis in our community is very, very active. He used to be a part of an organization called Renew Richmond. And he also used to work with Lewis Ginner Botanical Gardens. And he's come over and done seed workshops in my plant science class. And so we kind of collaborate. I've invited people from the community to use the greenhouse. So that's our community outreach for VUU. And a lot of the people who are doing urban gardening, he's trying to get education, and I would like to assist with helping those people to consider the impact of the atmosphere that they're growing their vegetables in. So our campus is is situated in a great location to do this study, since we are adjacent to I-95 and Lombardi and even Brook Road, which are high traffic areas. So we are going to plant collard greens, which is a very popular plant for people of color. And we are going to place them at strategic locations around our campus to be exposed to the contaminants that are released from traffic, from burning fossil fuels. And we'll take those plants up and measure the concentration of the metals arsenic, cadmium, and lead. We do not expect there to be a lot of lead, since lead has been removed from petroleum, but we are still going to measure it. We did some preliminary work. And when I say we, I'm talking about myself and our undergraduate STEM students. One of my students, Carter Kauser, she's graduated and she's over at Virginia State getting her master's right now. But she and I did the preliminary work. We did not do collard greens at the time. We actually were growing basil plants. And it was a great experience. And she called me one day and said, Dr. Abdullah, our plants are missing. We had them along the gates on Lombardi. And we found out later that our lovely librarian was concerned about the plants. She thought that someone had abandoned them on the side of the building. So she took them inside and watered them and started to nurture them. And we told her we were very thankful, but that she had kind of interfered with our study since we were trying to capture the cadmium in the basil plants. But that all worked out, and we were also able to collaborate with Virginia State because we don't have the instrumentation on our campus to actually do the measurements, and they do. So they allowed us to come over and walk us through the process. And we plan to use them again because we are a little strapped for cash too for our project. So we are trying to use every resource that we have available to us. So the current students that I'm working with, Shaylin Delbridge, she actually is on the Zoom this morning with us. She is going to continue. She's actually going to carry out a project in Mobile, Alabama, where she lives. And then I have another student on campus, Naira Smith Mayfield. She and I are going to continue the project here. So Shaylin, by the way, is going to present the proposal at the Harvard Undergraduate Research Conference on the 21st, I believe. So I'm super excited about that. So as far as the project and the research, that is what we're doing. But I also have a grant, an NSF grant, where we are looking at, where we sponsored about 25 students. And some of them are scholarship students, some of them work as tutors, some of them work as peer mentor tutors. And we're also collecting data on the how they use student support services on our campus, and how having scholarship money helps to defer some of the stressors that they would normally experience if they didn't have that money. So we are collecting data on that too. And some of the resources are used to support tutors on campus. So I'm super excited about that because we're able to collaborate with the university college and provide tutors for the entire campus for the STEM courses. So we're doing quite a bit. And I'm very excited to be at Virginia Union to be able to serve in this way. I know
That's
I
awesome.
said a lot.
No, that's incredible. That's great information, and special
Yeah.
shout out to Shaylin for the work
Yes.
that he's doing and all of the STEM students with you, Dr. Abdullah. So you've talked about your own interest in urban gardening. I mean, I'm sure there are folks in the listening audience that keeps growing. That's great. Who want to know, one, maybe how did you get into that? What, with a background in STEM and science, how did you personally get into urban gardening? And then the second part of this is, historically Black colleges like our very own, there are 101 in the country that collectively we educate 300,000 students, and HBCUs still today are the most productive, the best institutions for preparing Black leaders. 80% of Black federal judges came from HBCUs. 50% of elected members of Congress came from HBCUs. 40% of Black STEM folks and engineers came from HBCUs. Listen to this, 100% of Black vice presidents of the United States came from HBCUs.
Right, yeah.
Right? So HBCUs do a great job of preparing leaders. And I guess, given your interest in STEM, can you talk with us about what are some of the barriers for getting folks of color into STEM or STEAM and into your area? So your interest in urban gardening and some of the barriers into STEM for people of color.
Okay, I was recently, before COVID, attending the Women of Color conference, and that very question came up, and I had to think back in my lifetime, about my inspirations for my work, and it goes back for me all the way back to my grandmother. My grandmother was actually an urban gardener. It just didn't dawn on me. I can't believe I came full circle. I remember her taking me with her. She had one of her girlfriends that she worked with, and they actually found a lot not too far from our house. And she used to go out and plant tomatoes and lettuce and things like that. And I used to hang with my grandmother a lot, so I learned a lot from her. But yeah, that's how I got into the urban garden. That's how I came full circle back to it. But my graduate work was actually working with metals and animal systems. My master's work, we looked at the impact of cadmium in animal cells, and we were actually dosing rats. And we knew about how cadmium affected the animals, but we also wanted to find a solution or a remedy or something to mitigate or reduce the impact of cadmium in the animal system. So we were dosing the rats with cadmium, and then we also tested the selenium to see if it would reduce the effects of cadmium. And also zinc, because we know that cadmium causes oxidative stress, which can lead to DNA damage and other cellular issues. And so we were looking at the kidneys and the liver, since those are the two organs that are the filters for the system. And that was exciting. I had to actually guillotine rats because we had to kill them to remove their organs. So, but we have to care for the rats first. And so that kind of made it even worse, because I know you're not supposed to name your animal subjects, but we did that. And so I did that with when I was getting my master's. And then I was able to actually join that lab again to do my doctorate. By the time that I returned to the lab, they had started to do cell culture. So we no longer slaughtered the animals. We were just using the liver cells. And I continued my work. And this time we were using a constituent of garlic oil called diallyl disulfide to see how it would reduce the effects of cadmium in liver cells. And I was excited about this work because I really love holistic approaches to addressing health issues. And I like preventative healthcare suggestions or modalities. So I love garlic too. So I was like, yes, I get to do something that I'm excited about, and this can actually help people, and it's cost effective and readily available therapy. When I arrived at Virginia Union, I didn't have any grant money for research, so I had to look around and see what resources were available to me. And I inherited the greenhouse, and I always wanted to know more about plants and do the practical side. I can teach plant science, but sometimes you have to do some more practical things to actually have a deeper understanding. So this was a great opportunity to merge a lot of the things that I'm interested in, cadmium toxicity and living systems. And now I have access to a greenhouse and a community that is a great source for the contaminants that I'm interested in studying. So that's how that all came together. And again, it's very important for the work that I do to be something that people can use more immediately than in the future. A lot of research that is done is very necessary, but it is something that we build upon, and eventually it finds its way into the market or the community, or as an application. And so that's why I'm excited about being able to gather data that I can actually share with people who are currently working in their urban gardens and offer suggestions about how they can reduce exposure to contaminants for their produce. To answer your second question about barriers, part of the reason I am really excited about having this STEM grant, which provides scholarships for our students, is because this was done for me. I was actually an MBRS and MARC student, which are grants that provide scholarships for underserved students. At Tuskegee, I would not have been able to go to school, or at least not to Tuskegee, had it not been for that scholarship opportunity. My dad actually called, and I was fortunate that another student decided to go somewhere else. And so his scholarship opened up, or the opportunity opened up, and I was able to come and compete for the scholarship. And I was granted the scholarship for the entirety of my tenure at Tuskegee. And so when the opportunity presented itself at Virginia Union for me to actually be a co-PI on the STEM grant, I jumped at the chance to pay it forward and be able to provide that same opportunity for our students. And the funny thing about it is that I had no idea that I was actually being interviewed, in a sense, for this opportunity. Sponsored programs is so awesome. And one of the personnel who worked with them, he would come around and he would just sit and talk to us to find out what are we interested in, what would we like to do for research. And I didn't know that's what he was doing. And so he brought this STEM grant opportunity to me and was like, this is what we're going to do. Okay, let's meet. We're going to write this and we're going to submit this. And then we got it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to have the opportunity to pay it forward. And so I have enjoyed every moment of it. Dr. Carlita Page Anderson was the co-PI, and she has gone on to do some other things now. And so I have the full responsibility of managing the grant now. And I love my students. They're so awesome. And I'm super proud of them because they are all excelling. They have to do that anyway to keep the scholarship, but they're all excelling. They're all juniors now. And I'm looking forward to taking my box of tissue to graduation and just loving on all of them and wishing them well and helping them to get to the next level of their education or into the STEM workforce. We're really, really pushing our students to be that voice for us in the STEM workforce. We try to tell them if we're not there, our issues are not going to be considered. And we have lots of issues, and we need lots of people in STEM to help address our needs. So finances are a number one issue for a barrier for our students. Early exposure is also a barrier. Still to this day, being a doctor or a lawyer are the most popular and prestigious occupations that I think if you ask any third grader, they may feel some pressure to tell you those answers when they may not even know what you know, a doctor or a lawyer does. I hope they know what a doctor does. I hope their parents have taken them to the doctor. But there are so many STEM careers that people are not aware of. And so I think getting out into the community and helping to give the students a better sense of what they can do in STEM or in any occupation, since you were talking about students of color having exposure, what their barriers are, will be a great thing for us to do. And I know that people have been doing that work. People have been doing that work all along. I mean, I would not be here had it not been for people in the community or people in education or in different occupations sharing that information with me. I do know a lot of times we have family members who work in certain capacities, but the young people don't know what they actually do. I'll be honest with you, I did not know until I was in college that my grandmother had a master's degree in education. I didn't know it. I knew she worked at a school, but I didn't really know what she did. So I think that we need to do a better job at communicating what we do and how we address issues that exist in our communities through the work that we do, so that our young people will know you can do this too, or this is what I do, because that also will make you look like a rock star in their eyes too, because a lot of times they don't know what you do. They just know you leave and go to work. I'm excited that we have a K through 12 new administrator to help bridge those gaps between our university and K through 12. Dr. Jackson and I and several other faculty in the super duper fabulous Department of Natural Sciences, the best department on campus. We have been talking about some K through 12 initiatives where we bring students from the community into our classrooms to visit us on lab days. When we get back to that, we talked about going out to recruit students from the high schools. We would love to be a part of that effort because we know what we do in the department. We know what we offer, and who better to tell that story and try to get those students. And we also want to take our high performing students out, you know, because they know better than anybody about you know, what they're getting from the high quality education that they're getting and the experience that they're getting at Virginia Union, and especially in, like I said, the super duper fabulous Department of Natural Sciences. So yeah, there are a few
Shout
barriers.
out to the department. Well, your last point about the engaging faculty in our efforts to recruit students from K-12 schools, but having our faculty who are primarily working with our undergraduate and graduate students to really build the bridge between K-12 and our campus is certainly, I'm sure, good news to another member of our VUU community who is with us this morning in the spotlight, and that is Dr. Michelle McQueen-Williams. And so I'm sure that she'll be reaching out to you and Dr. McShepard and other faculty to think about ways that we can strengthen the pipeline between K-12 and our campus, because it's so incredibly important. Before I ask you this next question, I do want to encourage folks to feel free to use the chat. I see folks using it to give special shout outs. You got lots of love in the house, Dr. Abdullah. So you have to read those comments. But also, if you have questions for Dr. Abdullah, please feel free to type them in the chat box, and then we will raise them here. So you've talked about urban gardening. You've talked about your own narrative, your grandmother, her educational background. You've even helped us understand the importance of role models like yourself, and that it's, you know, I often say it's impossible to become something you've never seen. And so until a young person has seen a Black scientist or a Black biologist or a Black chemist or a Black professor, it's hard to imagine that one could do that. So the work that you're doing to build those connections and to mentor students is so incredibly important. You also talked about your engagement of students and research. And this is so important for faculty to work with students in different ways. But back in February or March, COVID caused us all to pivot and find a way or make one. So can you talk about what you've done amid COVID to still connect with students and have them engage with your research, although certainly COVID has imposed certain physical restrictions that make it difficult for students to do that. So talk to us about working with students in labs or virtually, even amid COVID.
Okay, I will have to shout out my department again. We have a team of fabulous faculty who are very engaged in their research pursuits and who are constantly trying to stimulate the students to participate in undergraduate research. One of my partners, Dr. Vernon Ruffin, is constantly trying to engage the students in presenting research, even if it's someone else's paper. So that's one of the things we've done. In our department, we host a journal club on Wednesdays. We also host a career seminar. Actually, we're changing that to Mondays now. We'll alternate weeks. We'll have our career seminars one week, and then we'll have our journal clubs the next week on Mondays. But that's one way we're trying to increase scientific literacy among our students. And so we try to engage them in becoming familiar with journals and how articles are written, and the fact that we use journal articles to communicate in the scientific community, and also how to do public speaking in science. I tell my students now, presenting in a virtual platform is way easier to me. It's a little less nerve-wracking. And so we can get them to continue and to practice in that way. It has been a struggle because one of the things that we have learned from the SEM grant is that a lot of our students are interested in, they don't really know very much about the graduate school path. They mostly come to Virginia Union, and I'm sure it's not the case only for Virginia Union, but a lot of our students come with the idea that they want to do some type of practical occupation like medicine or some form of medicine. That a lot of our natural sciences students are interested in medicine. We do have some students who want to go to graduate school, but it's not that many. And so the whole idea of doing research is something that we're constantly trying to encourage our students to engage in. I think if the student has to do a presentation, like Shaylin, who is an older student and she's super excited about just being engaged in research, it's been very easy to work with her. Even when Carter was here, she was an older student. It was easier to work with her. She understood the importance of research. Our younger students, we're having to, really, really work to encourage them to understand the importance of research. And even some of my STEM students, because one of the requirements to have the scholarship is that they have to engage in undergraduate research. So I'm trying to figure out how to help them come up with a project that will highlight some of the tools that they will use. Like a lot of my students want to be physical therapists. So I try to tell them, physical therapists use equipment that someone had to research for its, to see if the equipment is going to be to work for any of the therapies that they're going to use. So maybe we can do some research on therapies or either technology that's used in the careers that they're interested in pursuing. But it is a work in progress. We are constantly trying to engage the students. We do keep in contact with them virtually and try to hold meetings. We try to continue to have the journal presentations. Dr. Ruffin is the most consistent of us who is hosting. He even hosts these research forums outside of work hours. So I get a link from him. You need to join right now. We're getting ready. We have a presenter, and it's not just people from inside of the university. He's, becoming part of networks where he is engaging researchers from different institutions or different organizations. So as far as research and engaging students is concerned, I kind of take his lead and continue to engage our students in that way. But we have to do a better job. And Dr. McShepherd has used the career forum to promote graduate school opportunities. I've done a presentation on what it means, what it takes to apply to graduate school, and what it means to have a graduate degree and things like that. So We are promoting going to graduate school. So we are, through our promotion, trying to educate students on the pathway into STEM careers through research. The Center for STEM Diversity is constantly promoting graduate school applications, undergraduate research opportunities, internships. We're constantly pushing those things out and trying to figure out a better way to get that information to our students so that they can begin to take full advantage of all of these opportunities that exist. So.
That's incredible. We are winding up our time, but I want to use the last response that you just shared to certainly advertise that we've got 5 new graduate programs at Virginia Union, including a new master's in public health, a new master's in biology, and a new master's in political science. All 3 of them are in the School of Arts and Sciences. We've got a master's in hospitality management and an executive MBA. But for those who are in our listening audience or who will watch the video later, please, run to our website and check out these new graduate programs. You'll find them at vuu.edu under the academics tab. And I'm sure that Dr. Abdullah and her colleagues and all of our STEM departments would welcome the level of interest for those who are interested in our master's in biology and public health and political science. So before we get to our last question, I'm going to take one from the audience. We're going to do a quick poll. So while I launch this poll and let folks engage in it, we'll ask Dr. Abdullah our last question. So feel free to click on the screen and share. We'll share the results in just a moment. But after you lodge your own response to that, Dr. Abdullah, the question has come in: what challenges do you see in students succeeding in STEM or STEAM? The challenges that you see from your expertise and your experience and students succeeding in STEM or STEAM fields?
Well, again, like I said, early exposure would serve the students well, so that they would have an opportunity to see the diversity of opportunities that exist in STEM. I really think we need to do a better job at the K-12 level. And I think that at the faculty and the university community can do more outreach to assist the people in the community, those education workers who are on the front line doing a great job, considering all that they are tasked to deal with, all of the social issues that educators have to deal with. That they have to be mom, dad, grandmother, educator, lunch lady, disciplinarian. They have case social worker. They have so many things that they have to deal with as a result of a lot of the social issues that exist, that are embedded in society, in our structures, that perpetuate a lot of the lack of access to resources and things that would better serve our communities. So shout out to those educators, but we can do a better job at helping them so that our students will be prepared and that they'll know what is possible for them in their future. And we need to do that, because if we plan to address any of the issues that we have as people of color, we can't wait for other people to do it. We have to take responsibility and do our very best. So that would be my suggestion and my approach to helping with that. I know you said that was the last question, but I would love to shout out Dr. Faith Harris and the Green Team on our campus, because we like to do Earth Day programs and anything we can do to raise awareness about environmental issues on our campus. And we encourage everybody to come out and join us. And we plan to do a better job at advertising what we do. And I want to say Dr. Linda Jackson has been one of our super cheerleaders and provided support for us for those Earth Day programs, and we really appreciate it. And I also want to shout out Ms. Cheryl Richardson and Ms. Comey, because they also helped me with the STEM grant, with the STEM grant, and any other grant. And Dr. Ray, I just see everybody. I love all of you all. You make my job so wonderful. And of course, my super duper boss, Dr. Jackson, he knows. That's my guy. He knows. So
Well, I'm sure there, as they say in the church, you know, if you start calling everybody's name, you'll just have to
Right,
go through the
right,
whole list, because
right.
it does truly take a village, not just to educate our students, but to support each other. And we're so fortunate here at Virginia Union to have a really wonderful cast of faculty, staff, students, alumni, board members, executive leaders who are committed to the mission and the vision of this place. And you've given shout outs to everyone who's here, but I know that I speak for the audience. We want to turn the energy back to you and give a special shout out to you, Dr. Abdullah, for the good work that you do as a STEM rock star. Thank you for joining us this morning. I do want to show that, as if that's not enough, 100% of folks said they learned something new or interesting this morning. And so this is great. We certainly appreciate the faculty spotlight, which gives us an opportunity to celebrate our faculty experts on campus. And we thank each and every one of you for joining us for this episode. Stay tuned. We'll have another faculty spotlight every single Friday for several weeks. I think we actually have it through the whole spring semester. And we'll continue this again in the fall. So again, thank you to you, Dr. Abdullah. Thank you to everyone who has joined us. Please, we're looking forward to a successful launch of our spring term on Monday, January 11th. Until then, take care of yourself, wear your mask, wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart, but virtually hug somebody near you. Take care. This ends this session.
Thank you. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.